Remove. Hold on 1 second. It's like, hold on. Something happened. Of course. There you go. Okay. As always, there's always some sort of technical thing that happens on every single webinar, but we're here, we made it, and we are exactly on time. Welcome to the mega webinar. It's a fantastic way to wrap up 2023 and talking about the thing that everyone loves to talk about, the thing that we were all just talking about in our pre-webinar chat, and that is AI in the world of marketing. I have some amazing people here to talk to you all today about AI and marketing. And we're going to get straight into it because we have 2 hours, but we only have 2 hours. And we've got a lot of content to cover today. So we're going straight into it. I want you all to introduce yourselves. Go ahead. We can see everything that you're saying in the live chat. All the comments are coming through. So get started in the conversation. I'll be headed over there in the comments here in just a second myself. But I really want to kick off the conversation and really want to bring in the guests right out of the gate because they are fabulous. So first of all, let me introduce you. You probably already know her. She's the president of Content at Scale, but she's also an incredibly well-published author and the OG content hacker herself. Let's welcome Julia McCoy. Hey!
Diana, love your energy. And we have such a great group of people. So my goodness, I'm one of many brains here, just to clarify.
I mean, just personally, like as a marketer, I've been looking forward to this conversation since we planned it and everyone agreed. I can't believe all of these people agreed. So yay. All right. Our next guest, he is the originator of the duct tape marketing, which the duct tape marketing process. See, again, I'm like too excited. My mouth screws things up. They help small and local businesses streamline their marketing approach. He's turned out to be a fabulous friend of Content at Scale. Let's welcome John Jantsch. Hey, John.
Thanks. Excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, you're amazing. Thank you so much for agreeing. All right, we have John number 2. We've got John Doherty. He's the founder of Editor Ninja, which helps marketing teams and content agencies produce better content for more traffic, leads, and revenue. And he's a new dad. Welcome him to the webinar.
Hello. Second time dad, but I have a 3.5-week-old. So it's a fun time. I'm happy to be here. A little bit tired, but happy to be here. Lots of coffee.
And such cute pictures. I know I've been like stalking you on Twitter about your baby pictures. So it's great. I'm glad you had some time for us today too. Okay, now let's go ahead. I'm going down my line here. We've got oh my Lord, Diana. We have another amazing woman on board here in the webinar. She is a LinkedIn top B2B marketing strategy voice, the CEO, CMO, and co-founder of Marketing Nuts. Let's welcome Pam Moore to the webinar. Hey, Pam.
Hello.
Yeah, green screen and all. Such a professional.
Well, I'm working at a Tony Robbins event this week, and so I'm popping out for this event, so I cannot shut down my whole studio. It's got to stay the same.
No, I love it. We love green screens, so all is welcome on board. Okay, another one. We also have another published author and product-led SEO, guru, master, superstar, whatever you want to call him. He calls it being an advisor and a consultant. Let's welcome Eli Schwartz to the webinar. Hello, Eli.
What a welcome. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
So happy you're here. All right. And our fifth amazing, incredible, fantastic, awesome guest is the co-founder and CMO at Orbit Media. He's a very frequent public speaker and webinar guest for other incredible industry leading webinars and conferences and events. So I'm sure you've seen him pretty much everywhere. We're going to welcome Andy Crestodina to the show. Hey, Andy.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. What a crew.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Party is here. I cannot. This is just amazing. I've been geeking out, nerding out, having been fans of all of you guys for such a long time in the marketing world. So it's an absolute pleasure to have all of you in one place today. So thank you again. Oh my gosh, we have so many comments already coming in the live chat. Again, if you're just joining us, we can absolutely see your comments. Hopefully, we're going to leave some time at the end for some Q&A from you guys. So keep the questions coming. We've got team members from Content at Scale in the chat and myself all up in there so we can answer all sorts of questions. But we are going to get started because we have got quite the mammoth level of content to cover today. So I'm going to start with the first question, which is a round robin question. So for all of our guests to answer, what was the most interesting piece of formal AI news from 2023? Julie, I'm going to start with you because you've been amazing at being on top of breaking news in the AI world. So kick us off.
Oh, well, I love it. Something we were saying right before we went live was how in 1 week we can basically learn so much. And I think it's wild for me to have been a part of this whole industry since January and see so much change. Oh my gosh, never in 11 years, which is not as much as some of you here with me, but in 11 years of what I'm doing, I've never seen this level of acceleration. So number one piece of news I would have to say would be the 5-day saga of seeing Sam Altman get fired and rehired by OpenAI and following that whole journey. And now they've bought a whole stack of chips, supposedly. So OpenAI has actually paid Sam Altman some money, and it's on record now. So I think that's interesting, right? It was very much nonprofit. He was all about, they didn't pay him, and now there's a whole change there. I don't think we really knew what actually happened because OpenAI hasn't revealed everything, but it could be related to AGI. Who knows? That's a rabbit hole. But that has to be my number one piece because that definitely shook the AI as a whole.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, you did that spontaneous live stream about it too, because it was just such interesting flash new hot news that was happening so on the fly and so publicly, on Twitter at the time. So
yes,
it was really interesting to watch.
It was unveiling real time. Greg's live tweeting, well, I just quit too. And we're all what the heck is happening? It was crazy.
All right, John Jantsch, over to you. What was your most favorite piece of AI news over the course of the whole year?
I think for me, the one that's impacted us the most is when Eat became Eat. So, Google's changed to adding experience into, optimization algorithm. And you're seeing people who have really done things, really experienced things. I mean, they really can talk about, we train fractional CMOs. We talk about training fractional CMOs, and now our content ranks over Forbes articles on the topic because there's no experience component of that. And I think that's a piece that is very driven, or is going to impact AI very much, because a lot of people are just, putting crap content out there and expecting it to rank. And that's not the game we're playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was interesting when regular EAT came out too, for the same kind of principle, because people were putting out the crap and Google was like, we're tired of the crap. People don't respond to the crap. We need this next level. So adding that extra E was extra interesting, I guess. Okay, Eli, what about you? What have you been? What was your favorite piece of AI news over the course of the year?
I feel like I'm going to sound like a broken record today, but the biggest news is really that Google's going to upset their entire model around search by launching SGE. And I know people don't believe it because they haven't launched it yet. But when Google first said they're launching it, everyone thought it was going to be, first of all, like ChatGPT, and then they launched the wrong thing. So Bard was incorrect. And they thought it was going to be like this kind of Bard kind of thing where you ask questions like ChatGPT and then it'll be like Bing Chat. But what we've seen, and everyone should be in the beta of SGE, what we've seen that this is all new search. This is changing everything about the search layout. And I think that's the biggest thing. But many people don't realize it's the biggest thing because they actually haven't launched it. But they announced it in May. We saw it in May, and it's going to be big. We'll just feel it later.
Ooh, okay. A teaser for 2024, things to come, I guess.
It's interesting how a couple of us mentioned two things that had nothing specifically to do with AI, right?
Well,
they're being, I was going to say, they're just being driven by the change, aren't they?
It's true.
No, that's a really good point. The domino effect and the true impact of artificial intelligence and machine learning and all of that kind of working in the background, and the domino effect it's going to have on the way we do the internet, really. So it's interesting. All right, Pam, over to you. What was your favorite piece of AI news or AI related news?
I'm another broken record, but I'm with, if anyone knows me, I mean, I spent my years back in corporate in marketing product, but really focused around big enterprise risk management, like the data center and data and security. And so for me, I've been standing on the whatever you want to call it, trying to get people to understand the privacy implications and intellectual property. And so I think for me, it's been the series of news of, things that's happened. I don't want to call out the companies, but from attorneys to big tech companies where their data they've had issues. And then I think the icing on the cake was the Sam Altman thing. And so, I mean, I was with you, Julia, just that weekend or whatever it was, I was addicted. I was like, I would refresh my Twitter. I'm like, there we go. Like, what's next? And there were so many lessons in that. Number one, it shows you how volatile this whole ecosystem is, right? And how fast they grew. And then when we think of things like with Google, what Google's doing, I mean, it's this whole infrastructure that's like put together. What's it put together on, right? It's like, I mean, it shows how easily it can break. And when a whole entire company can walk out, what's the security for all of us around our data with that? And so, and I don't want to scare people, but I mean, companies need to be thinking of this. And so before you go put everything in there, you need to have those policies and be thinking about what you're doing. I know we have 2 hours to talk, but it's real, right? I mean, and so there's so much value in how we can leverage this stuff, but we can't slow down. I think it's one of the most tough eras we've seen from like Web.1 up to now. We can't slow down. Like companies cannot ignore it or they're going to die. But at the same time, they need to figure it out and know the things they need to focus on. So for me, it stinks what happened with OpenAI, but I think for the world and the industry, everything we all do, it's actually a good thing because it's a wake up call. I think for everybody, like wake up and see you need to take this seriously. This isn't Facebook. This isn't like this is much bigger than am I going to do social media?
Yeah. Well, and you hit on 2 aspects that have really been at like the core of like content at scale discussions, which is the safety and security of information, as well as adopt AI or get left behind.
Yeah.
Those are 2 very, very big messages that we focused on with the ethical ness of AI and our tool in particular. So it's really been, I've been seeing a lot of the security conversation and those concerns coming up a lot lately, like especially in the last, I don't know, month or 2 or something. I've just been seeing that kind of conversation going through the roof.
And so the companies you partner with if you have an agency or a consultancy, the companies that you leverage their AI, you better vet them. Like you better vet and find out how they're storing your data. What are they doing? Where's that? If it's a third-party data, where's it coming from? All those things matter. But it's awesome if you figure it out. Like as long as you're doing the right things, it's going to change your world and your life. But you gotta do the double click on it.
Well, you're going to see corporate policy, of firewalls and things, for certain things that's coming, hard and fast right now.
Yeah. All
For
right.
Yeah.
All right. John Doherty, what about you? AI news of 2023.
Hello. So for me, I think the most interesting shift, it's not necessarily like a specific news event that happened, though the Altman thing, I was also glued. I was glued to Threads, but it was just fascinating. But for me, it's been the shift from the start of the year to the end of the year with people kind of realizing what the heck we're doing with AI and what role does it play? I feel like at the start of this year, end of last year, start of this year, it was AI is going to put people out of work, right? And especially in content, it's going to replace content marketers and that sort of stuff. I run an editing agency. So, people are asking me left, right, and center, what does this mean? And I kind of formed a hypothesis that by June, people would start to realize that like, you can't just publish this stuff. If you do, you might get a pop of traffic and then you're just going to get decimated, especially if you brag about it on Twitter. I don't know if any of you saw that recently, but somebody bragged about, about this and it just got decimated. Fascinating, like, take and strategy, TBD if it really panned out for him. But for me, it's been the shift of people actually recognizing that like, this isn't going to replace humans. If anything, humans are more needed because of some of the reasons that Pam mentioned, the fact checking, that sort of stuff. And then I was on, ChatGPT the other day and saw at the bottom, I believe it was ChatGPT, where they say like, we don't always get it right. Please make sure to fact check, any statistics or anything that comes in here. And I'm like, thank you. Like, this is a large part of what
Finally.
we do when we're editing AI content. It's like, it's a lot of fact checking, a lot of hallucinations, and you know, that sort of stuff. You know, I like to talk about, my example is we have one customer, they're a local SEO agency that they're producing content using AI for their clients, and we're fact checking, copy editing, proofreading, all this stuff. And you know, we'll get an article that is like top 5 bourbon festivals to go to in Louisville, Kentucky in 2023, and like 3 of them will exist. One of them, the name will be wrong. The other one doesn't even exist. The AI just completely made it up. So like, we're sliding. I'm seeing the shift. We're seeing the shift, and obviously this is my space, but we're seeing the shift from like a lot of budget going to like writers and freelancers and like that sort of stuff. And a lot of those are still being used, but we're seeing more AI and more of that time and effort and expense shifting to editing, because that layer is just so much more important now than it was before. So that's been the interesting shift in trend for me to watch over the year.
Oh, I love it. And that so totally aligns with so much that we talk about. I'm like watching
It is.
Julia's face as you're saying this.
I'm like, uh-huh.
She
Yep,
has a
yep.
whole like AIO course. And
You've heard about that, right, John? The AIO approach.
I did indeed. Yeah.
You are a practitioner. Oh, totally.
We are.
I love it. All right. And over to Andy. So Andy, what was your most interesting favorite piece of AI news in the last year?
Well, it's just fascinating to watch the speed, the hype cycle, the applications, the fear, like just the roller coaster we're all on. One of those kind of peaks was Dev Day at OpenAI, which was exactly, I think, a month ago, November 6th. And huge splash, right? Like, this is going to change everything. Like, everyone's very excited. Interesting things rolled out, like the fact that it's kind of this multimodal model now. You don't have to choose between browse and advanced data analysis. Helpful. But then the other thing was the custom GPTs. So much buzz around these. And but for those of us that actually went and tried to build like a digital twin or to train it that way, it was a kind of a letdown in a way. Like, oh, this is actually way harder than we thought it would be. And a learning lesson in just how much training data you have to give these things to get something good out of it. I mean, so I suddenly realized, like, oh, wow, AI is fun, but also super tedious and mind-numbingly boring if your first job is to get, 100 past articles into a giant document and 65 video transcripts that you can then upload to try to get this thing to talk like you or to answer questions as if you were there. It's just like, it's really like a classic example. Was it Edison or someone, like 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration? Yeah. It's not really about prompt engineering. There's like a huge manual, tedious process for training AIs. And I found that a lot of the work that I do here is just like, if you stood over the shoulder of someone, a day-to-day practitioner, it's not very sexy, the work that you do to try to train these models. So yeah, I think custom GPTs were hyped and really, I haven't seen huge use of them yet. The people that are getting value are probably just working really, really hard to give it a lot of information. But that was like a mini case study in the whole story, which was super exciting. Wait a minute, what?
I also built one, had the same exact experience. I mean, I tried to train this thing to write in the style of Julie McCoy, and it instantly knew like who I was, picked up that, and then it named itself Word Weaver, and I was like, oh, what a great start. And then the prompts that we went with, so I'm like, write an SEO blog post in the style of Julie McCoy, write a Black Friday email, like all the things I've done that are successful. So when you click on that prompt, what you get out, I can't describe how trashy it was. It was like something I couldn't even use. And so to your point, like the training involved in this is something, we see this glitzy, flashy, appealing thing. We think it's an immediate hack. We think ChatGPT is the writer now. It's not. It's as the other John here, we have two, was also saying, we really have to drive this thing as a human, make sure it's actually producing good content that helps the world.
Yes.
It needs 100x what you thought it needed.
Yes.
It's something like that. Like it's not a shortcut if you're doing it right.
Yeah. And it is the power of the mind and machine. And for me, it's also because when I first went, even the first day I went into ChatGPT, it knows who I am. Okay. And it knows my voice better than I know my voice. Like it took me back to when I first started my business, like 2009, 2010. And I'm like, that's how I used to write. Like, I mean, it has my whole history, but it only knew me as like Pam Marketing Nut. Okay. So you have to be careful, particularly with personal brands, how you're branding yourself. So so when I and now it's better because it's picked up newer things, but I would have to say, put this in the voice if I was testing Pam Moore, AKA Pam Marketing Nut, and boom. And so, but then, and so I find that really interesting, because what if I wanted to get away from that, right? Because now it's almost like Google, it's in there. So if someone else goes to grab that business, that content on your brand, it's in there. And I've thought about changing my name away from Pam Marketing. I don't think it's ever going to happen. I'll be like 90 years old doing who knows what, and that'll still be my name online.
The LLM knows. You cannot untrain that.
Somebody figure that out for me.
You know, we've actually had some success with very contained models. So where I just wanted to answer questions from a large set of content we've produced already, rather than produce new content per se. So like the bot, kind of uses where somebody comes to a website and has 10 questions about, stuff that's on your website that's very contained. And I've seen it actually do a pretty good job with that.
Awesome.
That's nice. So it crawled the website though. So it's trained. The knowledge source was thousands. I mean, John, you're prolific and have been for decades. So
good point, Andy.
Yeah.
But again, the point is it's basically just becoming a great, search tool is what it is inside a set of
I think that's an interesting point, John, because a lot of people are trying to use AI to get from 0 to 100 without having gone first from 0 to 50. And you're already at 50. And now you can get that additional piece. And I think that's where a lot of people screw up AI content. They're just like letting it write everything for them without having their own ideas and their own voice, and Pam, like your own personality. So you can use AI to extend yourself. You shouldn't AI to create yourself.
Yeah. And those are the posts that you see lately. And I'm not making fun of anybody, okay? Because I know
you would make fun of people. That would be funny.
Okay, but it's like, okay, they're like, I hear the word scarcity. So like, make sure you put scarcity in there. And nobody knows their brand, but they're doing a post on LinkedIn that says like limited availability. And it's like, for what? Like, and that's where it goes back to the whole content. There's never a piece of content, just like there's never a landing page, right? Your customer says, hey, can you create me a landing page? Yeah, that'll be $30,000 because you don't know what landing page is. Right? There's not really 30,000. But I know you get this group I'm looking at gets what I'm saying. And that it's the same thing with content now. And brands are going to be thinking, well, you can just use AI. You can do this really cheap and fast for me. No, we need to also make sure we're protecting you if we are using AI.
Yeah, I love that. That's the philosophy you should be holding on to, right? In this world of content that isn't necessarily started by you, but is also having like that influence in the background. All right. Well, as we keep saying, we have so much to talk about. So now I'm going to go into, because we have such an amazing panel, like I dedicated one question specifically for each of you, but I want everyone to comment on it too, because we've just got such a great panel today. So I'm going to start with John Jantsch, because recently you conducted a poll on LinkedIn asking marketers, what do you see as the top benefit of AI in content creation? So I think that's a great way to really kick off this conversation today. Your audience voted on faster content creation, which is definitely a perk. But as we keep talking about, there's this optimization process that still happens. Yeah. So in your opinion, John, what is the top benefit, like in your mind, for AI as it relates to content creation?
So there's no question that faster content creation happens, using these tools. I think that's one of the reasons people are so drawn to it, right? But it also, faster crap creation can also happen, which is not necessarily a benefit, right? So I think, to me, the real answer is yes and no to that. There's no question that we are gaining efficiencies from it. But what I tell people all the time is that, when people wring their hands about, like, is AI going to replace our job? And what I tell marketers all the time is somebody as good as you using AI is going to replace your job. And I think that's the real, message there is we have to provide context. We have to provide the overarching strategy of what we want this content to do for us. That's never changed, frankly. I mean, that, back when humans used to write content, that was always, the role first, right? And so I think that this is just another tool. This is an efficiency tool. This is I think it was Andy's comment about, you can extend yourself. One of my favorite things to do is take content that we know is really great content already and use AI to repurpose it in all the various formats that we have to put content into today. The content's already good. We're just using the tool to actually reformat it in some cases, as an efficiency. So from that standpoint, the faster content creation is amazing, but it started with good content to begin with. So I think that faster creation and efficiencies conversation gets lost in the fact that we still have to provide content and strategy. We always had to do that. And so where people who are trying to go from, nothing, from zero to, wherever using AI tools, I think they're going to really miss the real value of this tool set.
What an interesting perspective, because you just said like the real value of this tool set. I think that is such an important mindset to be in when we talk about AI, because just especially when like ChatGPT came out, it generated like this replacement fear, as opposed to it being a tool that we can control, that we have the hands on. So I think that that's a really important thing that you just said. What about the panel? What do you guys think around like the true benefits to marketers around AI and content creation?
Well, I agree with John, the other John, that the unlocking of scale is definitely something that we can do a lot more faster. But it's just that it's a tool of scale, and it's going to scale whatever it is you already have. If you have a bunch of crap, it's going to scale a lot of crap. If you already have good stuff, it's going to scale a lot of good stuff. And so, I think the idea that it's an efficiency tool, it's an extension tool, to use Eli's words. It's not an origination tool. The origination is still going to be the human. It's still going to be us until we achieve AGI, right? But at this point, and I think for the foreseeable future, it comes from the human and how good the human is at using it, and making it do what we need it to do and what we want it to do. So I'm going to completely agree with John.
And I think it also, actually, the way to look at it is it frees us up to be more strategic, more creative, because, we no longer have to write metadata anymore because that part can be done, right? And so now we can focus on, the really creative stuff.
And we don't have to pay it. It's not like you have to go find a person, manage the person, and all of that. It's a different sort of tool. So it can help us achieve that a lot faster, somewhat, because we don't have to deal with the hiring and replacing of people and all that sort of stuff. So not that freelancers or whatever are bad by any means, by any stretch of the imagination, but it does let us do things in a different way, faster, that has its own pros and cons.
I got a different answer. It's kind of specific to a use case. Conversion is a lot about getting people's questions answered. We all probably know Marcus Sheridan, they ask, you answer. But it's very hard for a human brain to look at something and say what's missing, or to know like what's the content gap in this piece. Like, let's take like a conversion focused page. Like, which of my visitors' objections did I not address? Which of their questions did I not answer? So if you can give the AI a good persona, a detailed persona that has like, what are their emotional triggers? What are their decision criteria for deciding, who to hire? And then copy and paste in a piece of your content and say, to what extent does this page meet or not meet this visitor's information needs? It will, when properly trained, which takes a little bit of time, but it can then very quickly give you exactly what's not on the page, right? The brain doesn't do that very well. It's like, what are the most important things that I didn't say? To what extent? Or give it a bunch of pages, your page and 4 competitors, and have it draw a chart, right? It's like, to what extent does each of these pages meet or not meet this visitor's information needs in the context of making a buying decision? That's just fast. And I'm not replacing anybody's job. I'm going to go, fill in the blanks with my own writing maybe, but that kind of like persona-driven gap analysis, wow, like that is just, it feels like magic, right? When it works. And I can't think of a reason not to do that. Right? It's not expensive or time consuming, and the value can be extremely high.
And Andy, you've written some amazing tutorials on how to actually take and extract data and do that very thing. So I don't know if you can share those in the chat, but they are well worth the read.
And I would add to what Andy's saying, anybody that feels that their job can be replaced by AI doesn't have enough confidence in their own abilities to not be a computer and not be AI themselves. Like, you know who doesn't think their job's gonna be replaced by AI? Salespeople, enterprise salespeople.
Yeah.
They know that they're so good at what they do and understanding the prospect and like nurturing them and bringing them to a close. Like, they're not being replaced by AI. You know, we always thought like, oh, great, make these great landing pages. Great landing pages don't close $1 million deals. They get you into the funnel. They get you to do a demo. They get you to talk to that salesperson who won't shut up. So if you are really good at exactly what Andy said, understanding the gaps, understanding the personas, you cannot be replaced because those are human emotions. And I feel like we're many, many centuries away from getting there. And that's when robots are selling to robots.
Well,
That'll be interesting.
I totally agree. And we're getting ready to launch a new business and partnering with an AI company. I can't talk about it yet, but that is very focused on what we're talking about here with buyer personas and making it easy from the entrepreneurs up to enterprise brands. And so I think that goes back to data, right? And how awesome will it be when a startup entrepreneur can have access to some of the same data that in the old days only enterprise brands had, right? And so it's the whole thing when we start to talk about, I think everything you're saying about jobs is so right on. Remember the days of like all the web developers thinking they were never going to have a job again when like Facebook and everything came on, right? Oh, what am I going to do? Or WordPress, like we have to adapt. We have to move forward. And I truly believe that this is an opportunity if people are feeling threatened and they don't need to think they need to go change jobs. Like instead, if you're in marketing and you love marketing, step into an area of AI that you can go become an expert because we're at the very, very start of this. And I think the data, there's so much opportunity with the data and conversions, right? And where we have seen it is on things like email. So it's like it was really hard for me one day, but I let ChatGPT really give me some subject lines and those types of things. And then it kept asking, I can help you write the email. I'm like, no, don't need you to do that for me. And so, which is scary because what if I was a junior marketer and you don't want your junior marketer doing that?
Yeah.
But our open rates are now up to like 67 to like 88%. And I cleaned my list, but I mean, it was insane. It went from, it was like 30-ish% and we jumped immediately to 67 in the first day I used it. So like, if you're not using it yet for that, you should. It's easy.
Wow. Those are impressive.
I have the screenshots to prove it. I mean, those are real numbers and I can't believe it. And all the open rates and the click-throughs and the conversions. And so from a creator perspective, an influencer perspective, an agency perspective, anybody who's leading marketing, those numbers matter because you're able to have a higher ROI on everything you're doing. If you can just figure out those one or two areas right now that you can drive a return. So like if you're looking to get a budget for this stuff, that's what I would do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well said, actually. Yeah, that was, that's a really good way of thinking about even the concept. And like you said, like budgeting, because we all know in the marketing world too, like a budgeting for these partnerships or budgeting for these tools and things like that is a struggle a lot of the times, but investing in something like this, and we were just getting some really great comments around like how it frees up marketers to do other things. Like, so it's smart to start thinking about that sort of even from a budgetary standpoint too. And we've talked about that too, about like not having to have somebody else to write the metadata or something like that. So there's some interesting like budgetary conversations happening around this as well. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and ask my next question to our panelist, John Doherty, John number 2, as we've been kind of referencing this webinar.
I'm okay being John number 2 to John Jen.
John.
Yeah. Okay, so you recently shared that Editor Ninja's October financials were your best revenue month ever and encouraged other agency owners to invest more of their own money to kickstart growth. But how can AI help kickstart that growth for a new agency?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, and it's been a wild year. I really started working on this business hard in January of this year, and it's been fun. And AI has really been a lot of the growth that we've seen over the last 3 to 4 months. But with like new agency owners and also existing like agency and service business owners, I think we've been kind of talking around and kind of specifically about this topic. But it's really like, if you can get out in front of all of your competitors, there are so many people that are so scared of using something new, right? Like, we're all here obviously bought into it. I'm usually a little bit of a laggard on this sort of stuff, like on the parabola of adoption. I'm usually like kind of a late early adopter. There's like the innovators and then the early adopters. Then it's from the book Crossing the Chasm. Then it goes into like the early majority and the late majority. I'm kind of at the end, right before something jumps across the chasm and becomes mainstream. But with this one, the day OpenAI launched, I got access as soon as I could. I did 4 prompts and got goosebumps. So I was like, this changes the game. And so if you can leverage these tools, learning from people like Andy and John, and to become much more efficient with these sorts of things, you can find so many savings on your end. I don't necessarily think you should charge less for AI content, because there's still a lot of effort. And as I said, it shifts to like a lot of the budget shifts to the editing and kind of the post-production and the promotion and all that sort of stuff. But you can find so many efficiencies in the actual like creation of it, and also efficiencies on your end, workflow efficiencies to get good stuff out faster. If you can do that faster than your competitors can, then you're going to be able to gobble up a lot more market share than others, because you're going to be able to do, multiples of the work with the same number, if not fewer people. And I've actually seen this a lot. I've been in the agency world for a long time, and I've seen this a lot recently where agencies are trimming headcount because there are now redundancies and they don't need all these people to manage all these freelancers and that sort of thing. And they're reskilling or upskilling or hiring in one person who can basically do the same amount of work as 5 or 6 people could do previously. So I think there are efficiencies to be found there. And just us as marketers and as agency owners, I think we're going to be able to serve a lot more people just as well, if not better, by being able to leverage this. So I think, and agencies are hard. Like, agency financials are hard. I'm just going to say it, like profitability, like the margins can be super, super tight, especially in the console world.
Yes.
Traditionally, they're so tight that I think this is a way that we can actually turn content and content marketing into a higher margin business, which allows us to do more, to invest back into the business, and and actually make a bigger impact in the world. So that's my take.
Ooh, wow. Amazing. I love that perspective of how, because you're so right about agency life and the financials and spends and making all of those numbers make sense. That it would be fantastic if this could really make the content piece of the marketing world into that higher revenue piece. Julia, I'm sure you have some thoughts on this.
Oh my goodness. Yes. So I spent 10 years running a content agency. So I know that life, John. And
Yep.
John Jantz was actually a partner in some of that. So, that you talk about profitability, difficulties. I can't tell you a harder business model than a humanly run content agency. And we were at 19% profit margin for 4 years. Never thought we'd get it higher, and we did. I still almost don't know how. So it is like one of the most difficult models to scale. So I think that AI in particular, the innovation that we have as agency owners available to us it's transformative for our business models in content. And something I've done in my role at Content at Scale that I've really, really enjoyed is I've helped agency owners adapt to this idea of AIO, where you have one human that can be exponentially increased in terms of their output and capabilities with the right AI tool. But it's all about the right AI tool, right? Like Pam, you saw, you can't just ask ChatGPT to write an email. It's going to put out something horrible and set you back. So with Content at Scale, that's one of the differences you get. You actually get output that your proprietary information isn't going out to the public. It's your own trained specific AI output that's high quality. So with a tool like that, when you can access that tool, you can kind of put it in the hands of your best writers, your top strategists, and just have them do. We have seen unbelievable numbers. I think the highest case study I've done is a 25x increase on what one human can actually do.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean writers are fired. It means, we can take on 100 more clients Because
Yeah.
that's the mindset to have, not who do
Yeah.
we fire? It's who do we augment and 10x and make them just even more valuable. So that's like such a game changer. I mean, doing that for a decade and now teaching, I've taught about a dozen agency owners, and they're seeing upwards of 73% profit margin increases and then up to that 25x. We've actually tracked that number. So it's
That's
pretty
amazing.
unbelievable.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
And can I make a proposal? I think this is an opportunity for agency owners and people like us to disrupt and change the entire ecosystem around what is an agency and what we do. And
Yeah.
why can't we all work together, right? So like, why can't I hire John D to help me scale content, right? Because I don't want to do that anymore. So I want to talk to you after this event. Why can't I
Let's
partner
chat.
with- yeah, why
And
can't
John, you got to use content at scale.
like everybody here? Why can't I chat with Rabbi or whoever on SEO? Like I know the areas I'm going to be focusing on. A lot of that's going to be around audience, buyer persona, personal branding, that type of thing. What does our people stack? If we say it's mind and machine, what does that really matter? What does that really mean? It means more than one person, in my thought. It means humans aligning to say this robot is not going to own us, right? The profitability is already hard enough. And if we all come together, like we did in the early days, remember about learning what Twitter was? Like we just need to repeat that, and even in a better, bigger, better way together. That's my belief. And I think then we all win. There's enough for us all to win together.
Such a great message. So hard to do. I know, John. I know. I want to hear what you're thinking.
No, that's been my model for about 15 years. And we've trained hundreds of agencies to do that exact model. But I was going to throw out a very practical tactic that people can use this tool. One of the things that's tough in agency is we all want to do account-based marketing. We all know that sending a LinkedIn message is not going to cut it, right? I mean, we have to, personalize and whatnot. We are now able to use these tools to very quickly do some amazing pre-sale content for account-based marketing. So we overwhelm people almost with the ability to show them how much we know about their industry, about their market, about their challenges, about the threats, opportunities, and trends in their industry that they can't even consider going with somebody else, because we can now afford to do that in a pre-sale environment.
What I wondered, I thought you might comment on, is the adoption and the psychology around the technology. I think AI is like a personality test for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think I sort of joke that it segments us into three groups: the waiters, the haters, and the updaters. Waiters are like, oh, Google will make a thing. I'll just wait. Some tool will come out. It'll be part of all my other tools. I can't see the product pipeline, but something's coming along in a minute. The haters, right? It's a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it'll be part of my thing later.
100%, yes.
Yeah, I'm not going to experiment or study. It'll show up someday. The haters are like humanist ethos, not interested, anti-AI, and there's maybe, I don't know, do you think 10%? There's a group of people, right? There's quite a few people that are opposed to the technology sort of ethically.
They use the word bespoke a lot.
Yeah. And I get that, and I understand that. And even they, I think, see value in the ideation part. They just don't want it to make anything.
Yeah.
They find it to be a perfectly fine brainstorming tool, which is the most common use case currently for content marketers. It's just like topic research.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's the updaters, who I think on this call, of course, most of us are like rushing to try to find a way to, have a relationship with this and to get value from it, and to, not miss opportunities, and to create stuff more efficiently or be more comprehensive, or to forego all the tedious stuff. So in that context, the agency has all different personalities.
Yeah.
What do you do? I mean, I was purposely looking up, and you're in my top right, John Jansch. I was like, he's got a perspective on this one.
I don't have a very good one. It's like, get over it, deal with it. I hate to say it, but that's kind of where we are.
And find your tribe. I mean, I truly think there's a people stack and there's a tech stack.
Yeah.
And there's going to be multiple. I mean, there's a whole tech stack if you integrate everything. But there's this AI stack, right, for an agency or anybody in this space. And then there is your human stack. And it's like, and that's what I've been really focused on the last year is who am I going to partner with? And bringing those people together. And it's not like we can just go do a Google search, because everything you just said, Andy, is 100% true. Like, you got to find, it's the personality. How are they adopting it? What are their privacy? How are they managing the data? I mean, there's a lot of discussions that need to happen, but I think if we find those right people, and being on this call makes me, I love it, because I know those right people are out there doing these things. And if we come together, then we can have a model that then we can help others with later as well. Here's how you find your people.
There's such an education bit to all of this as well, where it's like there are always going to be those that are completely opposed to it. I would argue they're misguided, but also it does bring up the good question of like, what should we use it for, right? And there are some use cases. I mean, to Pam's point about privacy and all that, there are some things that we probably shouldn't use it for, right? There are other things that if you care about efficiency and profitability and delivering value to the world and all that, that you should use it for, right? I'm not going to say like everyone should, and if they don't, then they're wrong. But like there are areas where it is better used than others. Let me put it that way. And so I think it's a matter of like education and kind of, you know, the leveraging the hive mind and the hive like intellect, you know, to improve our use of these tools, because they are just, at the end of the day, they're tools.
So I'm not an agency, but I want to give a perspective of like someone that influences people that purchase agencies. So I work with clients and prospective clients and how they're deciding to use content. And what I think is interesting is you guys decided and divided this line between like using AI versus people. And I actually think there's nuance in there, and that you need to use both. So with many of the companies I talk to,
100%.
when you're
100%.
using people, let's say a good person, and Julia, you're a great writer, and you're as a human writer, you were on that side of it. A good writer can only produce one good piece of content per day, which means that's 5 pieces of content per week. Now, if you have an e-commerce site and you need to produce a lot because you need product descriptions, there is nuance there where that's where you use AI. So you have your great human writer that might be writing your social media and your emails with emotion, or your blog, but you still need a mix in the AI content that's writing the content that you don't need to waste your human writer's time on. And the solution prior to AI was really low quality content, which is too low. So like Fiverr content. So AI now gives us this layer between paying $5 for a piece of content and $500 per piece of content. So you have all these different levels that didn't exist before. And I think that's where, as agencies, again, I'm not there and you guys are offering this, but as agencies, you can offer that nuance that never existed before. And you can have that hybrid between, do you want the Pulitzer Prize writer, or do you want like, you know, the machine writer, and you now need to edit it?
And I think that's what we're talking. That's what I was talking about. Like, I don't see there being even possible to have a line. It's, but at the same time, you have to know, you have to train your humans on it, right? You can't just throw. So it is the integration. It is truly, in my mind, that human and machine working together, with the human having as much control as you possibly can on how you're going to use these things and your team. But I totally agree with you.
Yeah. And there was a question, actually, Pam, I don't know if you saw it. There was a question in the chat about like training your newbies and your junior team members on like the proper use to get like the best out of AI. And then on this kind of similar topic, and I have a bit of a soapbox that I will not go on, but like this, to me, like when ChatGPT and OpenAI first came out, we didn't have like these conversations. It was like, it wasn't necessarily like talked about or marketed very well. And so now as like a marketer for an AI tool, we are kind of coming up against these, like the fear and the adoption, like the adoption anxiety, because of the lack of conversation that happened in the very beginning. Because I mean, we're way into like a year plus into this stuff now at this point, and like there wasn't this beginning conversation about how the human and the tool work together. It was just not talked about in the very beginning. So now we're kind of still like putting Band-Aids on those cuts from the very beginning. So it's interesting being the marketer, you know, of the AI tool at this point. So Pam, I want to direct the next question over to you too, because this was really cool that I'm going to bring up. One of your most recent blog posts was called "Oh, the Places AI Can Go: A Marketing Journey with Dr. Seuss." which is just like this absolute beautiful blend of AI and creativity, something that like Content at Scale we hold near and dear to our hearts. It's just, it was a amazing demonstration how AI is not cold or mechanical.
Yeah.
So what role does creativity play when it comes to AI content creation?
Okay, so I love that you asked this question because that, and let me tell the story. So, as we are starting a new era, whatever we want to call it, my philosophy is I always go back. So I'm like, okay, what did we do with Web 1.0? What did we do with Web 2.0? Where did we do well? Where did we fail? Where did we F up? And so, and looking at that, when I started to look at my content, I'm like, what are the pieces of content I did that were really good? Okay. So, I had a piece back in the day. I don't know. It's probably 2011, 12. I'd have to go see. That was a Dr. Seuss article for social media. And I don't know anyone that knows me from the old days. It was like, I had the granny posts, and those were the ones that like took down my server. Like it was like, I had it wasn't a very good server. Okay. But it's like, oh my gosh. And so I went back to those posts, and then I thought, okay, so I want to do something with AI. And I actually used ChatGPT to help me with some of those ideas. And I did it as a case study. It helped me come up with the title for it. Okay, I'll give ChatGPT full credit for that. And I didn't know how it would do. And then I put the post out there and I referenced the old one. And everybody thought, I got a lot of comments. They thought that I just had AI do the whole thing, right? So they're like, oh, you got that. I'm like, no, why don't you go back and let's hear. And I linked to the article that was from back in the day. So that shows from a creativity perspective, and I think Eli, you were talking about this, all of us were, John, that moving from 0 to 50, right, is hard. Moving from success you've had and then modernizing it is a great place to go, right? And so take what you've had that's been successful. And this is a perfect case study because it doesn't have to be 100 posts, right? So even if your company hasn't done that much content, that's why you partner with brands like Content at Scale, right? And so, but you don't get out of your own head and your own beliefs in that. Even if you failed at content before, here's your opportunity. You have an opportunity to change. And build that team and get the right technology because everybody's starting at the same place. And so that was one that I just did, blended data, all kinds of things. And so I put it out there. I've gotten tons of leads from it, new customers, new AI partners. A huge success, just like it was 10 years ago. So, and it didn't take me very much time at all. It was
and just a great use case for repurposing because it surprises me how often like repurposing content still comes up in conversation. And I'm like, why isn't everyone just doing it? Like that's just like the way to get the most bang for your buck out of your content. And so I thought it was such an interesting piece and just so original and creative.
And I have more that I'm doing so eventually there's going to be like a little series that comes off of that. And then you can go, when you talk about content ideas, you can ask ChatGPT for image ideas. Like you can get ideas for, give me an idea of how I could do a webinar, like whatever it is you're wanting to do. Tell me what a campaign could look like on a mini series on this over 6 months. So that's when you start to be able to train like a junior marketer to where you say, hey, I have this project. I have this piece of content. I want you to go back and do the research on this piece of content we did or whatever it is, a campaign that had multi-assets. And I want you to analyze it. So you're teaching them to go dig for data. You say, I want you to analyze it, come back, tell me what you think. And then I want you to, here's what I want you to do. And then let them use AI. I always believe in giving people a long leash. Give them a long leash and let them come back to you. See if they can use AI to put a new campaign together and let them have some empowerment with it.
I love that. Putting it in the hands of the people. That's like, whenever I see a lot of friction, and I was this person, so I laugh. Like I was the snobby writer all of last year that was even anti-ChatGPT. Like I hate this garbage. I'm not even going to recommend it. I'm not even going to use it.
First step is awareness.
I changed my tune completely. But it's like you actually have to put these tools in the hands of the person using them. Yeah. You can't just like give it to your agency director or maybe you hold the account. No, you actually have to tell your writer, hey, make sure you're going to go and use ChatGPT, Content at Scale, whatever tool's appropriate, but like put it in their hands and then just reiterate over and over, hey, make sure you're using that. Hey, how are you using it? Tell me what you like about using ChatGPT for headlines, because there's so many resistant writers
Mhm.
or people that just fear it. And so I think that's where we can actually be an agent of change, helping other people bolster their careers, get future proof here, because the truth is this will remove a lot of jobs. It'll augment some, but it will remove some too. So that's how we all can just be an agent of change. Is like in our teams of people, the people we hire or consult or help, are they actually using it? Can we facilitate that, help them get over that fear?
I love that. I have
establishing.
just quick perspective. I teach a class at Northwestern every year, now twice a year. It's a content strategy course. And
Nice.
and there's a lot of talk in higher ed about AI. I require that our students use it, and I have them. I part of the assignment is to describe how you used it and list the prompts that you got value from, and link to the chat if you use ChatGPT. And what I found is that yes, we have to make these tools available, and if you give it to students, it's really interesting. Like lazy students are still lazy. They're not.
Yep.
They don't necessarily use it well at all. It's
No.
not. It's not a magic. It's not like a spell book or magic wand. Like the way that they come back with their homework after having used AI, and of course, if you give them a tool like this, you have to expect more of them. The assignments expect more of them. It's not just like write 10 draft headlines. It's like give me 25 draft headlines and indicate which ones are likely to perform better in search or in social. They're just they're definitely there's a gap, right? Giving someone the tool is not giving someone the skills to use the tool. Even AI, the UX couldn't be simpler, right? You type into a box. It still takes training. You still have to work with them. You still have to teach them, because people, like, their expectations are so high.
I'm sorry.
It's okay, Pam, we're home. Anyway,
Wake up, everybody.
that was the whole thought. Is just that it's the tool itself is insufficient. They still need someone to kind of there's still a skill involved in learning how to use it well.
It's so true, because we've seen writers the same thing, like what you just said, Andy. Lazy students are still lazy students. Lazy writers
Yeah.
are even lazier. It's kind of creating a problem where they actually think they can send something in and get paid for it, and ChatGPT fully wrote it, and it wasn't fact checked, and it wasn't even proofread. No, you can't.
Bunch of word salad coming in.
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
Do we get it?
Like
Amen? It's no different than the Hootsuite days, and this is right. Think about that, because everybody thought, oh, this is gonna we can just blast content out. How did that work? And
history repeats itself.
yeah, and the same thing used to happen then, and then the typos, and then that went back to content, right? Then you had to have all the different people that knew how to, you do the content from start to finish, and be able to and then you have to have someone make sure there's no typos and the grammar and the same thing, and that's why people like John D have your business, and we need to talk.
Yep. Well, I think a lot of it is also, I was gonna say, establishing a culture of creativity and learning like this, and I was saying earlier, where these tools are allowing us to unlock such efficiencies, and we can do more with it. Like if we can achieve better profitability within agencies as well, that means people, human employees, don't have to be working on as many accounts. Like back in the day, I worked for the SEO agency formerly known as Distilled, right? They were acquired back in 2020 by Brain Labs. But I worked for them, and we had, the team was just incredible. Like people that now are running very successful SEO agencies in the UK and the US, et cetera. And we were all about 75 to 80% utilized. We charged higher than industry average rates back then. We were working with great brands. We were all about 75 to 80% utilized. And some of that was so that we could write content for the Distill blog and the Moz blog and that sort of stuff. But some of it was just because they wanted to give us extra time to try new things. And so if you look back at the Moz blog and the Distill blog at that time, I don't even know if the Distill content is even live anymore, but it was all these tools and Google Sheets. And, I remember one guy, Tom Anthony, had this tool that he called SERP Turkey, which was the start of A/B testing search results using Mechanical Turk, using humans to click on stuff so you could see if we change the title tag to this, what could the uplift be? This is 2011,
the original
2012.
AI.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, they've gone on to build Search Pilot, right? Which Will Rich, the co-founder of Distill, is now CEO of literally a SaaS tool for split testing SEO changes. But the point is, we had the culture of creativity, the culture of learning from each other, and we were encouraged to be creative and to find new efficient ways to do this, right? So I think AI is no different. So some of it starts from the organizational culture down to encouraging people, and then also us as the leaders sharing what we're doing, right? And having the time and the space to do this as well. Hey, here's a cool thing that I found, and then some smart person that you have on board is going to take it and run with it, and this is why we hire people better than us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Amen.
It's a tool. That's it.
Exactly.
It's like I was just putting in the chat. Who remembers the days of going to Mashable.com? And I totally hacked their site. Not broke in, but like I would go there like once a week to figure out what WordPress plugins they were using. Like I'm like, okay, that's the one I'm doing. Who else did that? I know y'all did that, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Pam, you cracked me up.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm too young.
I know, I'm dating myself.
Yeah, Julian, I can say I was blogging before Mashable came around, so that's I'm
I
old.
remember when Mashable was new.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Before it was a link selling site.
Yeah. I think part of what we're all saying here is just that this can be a skills leveler, and there's data around this. I don't know if it was the Pew Research thing or the BCG thing, but it makes anyone who uses it more comprehensive and improves quality of work and efficiency. But it really improves people that have lower skills. But I think that's when we all need to sort of help them along.
Yeah.
I'll give you just a quick example. I'm often evaluating web pages for clients, or my team did or something. And you look at pages, and a lot of web pages have no evidence. They're just like piles of unsupported marketing claims.
Yeah.
So I'm able to, after years of training, right, 24 years, I can look at a page and I can basically go through it and call out like where it's missing, social proof or test or data or statistics. Okay, I've got a prompt that will do that now. But listen how detailed this prompt is. You're a conversion optimization expert, skilled at using evidence to support marketing messages. The following are types of evidence that can be added: testimonials, reviews, case studies, success stories, data, statistics, years in business, number of happy clients, client logos, awards, association memberships. Attached is a screenshot of a web page. Rate the extent to which the page does and does not use supportive evidence. List the marketing claims that are unsupported. Okay, I can write that prompt. I wrote that prompt. I read it. I'll put it in the chat. But not everyone can write that prompt.
Yeah.
Right.
So that is how it can be a skills leveler. If you've got sort of that, it's what AIO is about partly. There, it's a long, it's a very long chat message. But that idea is that there's still subject matter expertise and institutional knowledge that has to go into that creates the inputs that then other people can quickly get good output from. That process still has to be there.
That's
Yeah.
such a great point.
I would put that
Yeah.
prompt on the screen, but it would cover all of our faces.
It's a long prompt. I have like 1,000 word prompts. Like if you're doing it right, you've got
Yep.
very right.
Yep.
People are surprised at how long some of these, what it takes. Tell it, give it a framework, and then ask for the answer. It's totally different than the short, simple prompts, lazy prompting, I call it. Some people.
Yep.
Yeah. And Heather Deterrative, sorry if I'm mispronouncing her last name, but she just said prompt engineer will be a key job in the future. I think it already is. I mean, it's already
Yes.
something
We have like
I
3
see.
of those, Diana.
I know. I was gonna say, like, it already exists over here. All right. Well, I want to get to a question. I have a question for Eli now. So I want to hear, because your background is strongly in product led and SEO. So I want to hear from you about like the crossroads of SEO and AI generated content. And, we've been talking a lot about AIO, but like, we can also talk about the results oriented thing that comes from SEO and now hopefully AIO. So what are your thoughts on that, on the crossroads here?
Yeah, so I think that we've been talking about how we create content, but with AI, but I also think that we really need to think about how that content is absorbed and how Google is going to be using AI themselves. So one thing I thought was interesting when at the beginning, I mentioned SGE and John talked about AI in search, and you guys said it wasn't really AI. So it reminded me of a presentation I used to give when I would talk about Google. And this is probably, 5 years ago, where I talk about Google and how Google ranks content. And what I did to really underscore the AI within Google was I had this video of me it was like a really shaky video. I took it of me like riding a bike in front of a self-driving car. So a Google self-driving car. And as I'm talking about Google's AI, I always watch the audience. They want to see if my phone would drop or if I'd get hit by the car. So I'm riding a bike like directly in front of this car. At the time they had drivers. Now there are lots of cars without drivers, and the car didn't hit me. It slowed down. And it's probably like the AI in the car and the safety driver would get like really annoyed. Like I'm going like 10 miles an hour. The car wants to go a lot faster, but I right away, I'm in California. So that's AI. Like that has always been Google. Like obviously there's different AI, like AI that drives a car and decides like not to run over a biker is very different than the AI that decides like what the topical intent of a query is. Obviously it doesn't need to be as smart. But Google has always had AI, and that's what differentiated Google from being a directory. Like early search engines were just directories. Like that's why, you know, people loaded up their meta keywords with porn keywords because like, oh, I don't know, I just want to redirect you. You were looking for adult stuff, and now I'm going to sell you a car warranty. Or you're looking for gambling, and now I'm going to sell you something else, right? So like, and then Google created all this really AI around like what do backlinks matter and how do they matter. And my point in this presentation was always that there is a thought process to something. It's not this mathematical logarithmic measurement of like a backlink from Mashable, as Pam mentioned earlier, is like worth, you know, 100 points, and it's always worth 100 points. No, there's this thought process of like, well, what's the article about? How have they linked to it before? Who else links to it? What's the topical relevance? Like in my career, so I used to write at SurveyMonkey. On 3 occasions, we got links from whitehouse.gov. You know, the first time we got links from whitehouse.gov, I actually manipulated the flow of those links in order to make it beneficial. The second and third time we got the links from whitehouse.gov, it was because the Trump White House stole content directly from our blog. Like there was positive polling about the White House, so they just ripped it straight off and had links within it, and they didn't change a thing, and it didn't do anything for our content. So it was interesting to be able to see like a site that, I don't know, if Google still had PageRank, I think the whitehouse.gov would be a 10. So it was interesting to see that didn't do a thing for us whatsoever, because there is that thought process. Should those links matter? So going back to your question, intersection of AI and SEO, Google, it's not that you could just create content and create content at scale. Like, oh, I used to be able to create hundreds of thousands of pieces of content with Fiverr, and now I can create hundreds of millions of pieces of content with AI because there's no upward barrier. Google is looking at the quality of that content. And in the last couple of months, actually the helpful content update's over a year old, but the last couple of months, we've seen more helpful content updates where they're looking at whether content is helpful or not. And what that means is a deeper look at what is the quality of the content. And it's not just, oh, I created words and there's keywords in it, and like I even understand my intent. It's really like, is this useful? And that's AI. And that is where I think Google is going. You know, I thought it would be this year with SGE. Now it's likely going to be the beginning of next year because they're in code freeze already. But they're integrating this whole concept of like generative AI within search. So if all you're doing is summarizing something with generative AI and then feeding it to Google, users can skip that and just go directly to generative AI, and Google will skip it and go directly to generative AI. So, and I put something up on LinkedIn today about affiliate sites because I was just looking at this yesterday for an affiliate site that got hit by helpful content. A lot of affiliate sites, they took products and they wrote up dumb content. This is the pros and cons. Google can do the exact same thing, and they will do the exact same thing. So that is, I think, the most important part of like AI and SEO is like shortcuts will stop existing because there's less to take advantage of.
Yep.
Google can do the exact same thing.
And how does time, I'm curious, how does time fit into that? So like, how is Google looking at when that piece of content was created? Is that a data point? Because it knows all of our data, right? If it's crawled our site. So if it is able to, so like, let's take a situation. If we're reusing a piece of content that we own, how does the time layer feed into that? So if someone's recreating that using AI and stealing content from somebody else, basically, and Google knows that we did that piece of content however many years ago, and it has however many thousands of links all over the web, is that AI my guess is that AI would protect us. That
honestly,
I'm just curious on where the time factor fits in.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is I think it's going to be really, really hard to reverse engineer generative in Google search. So there's all this stuff coming out now with like the antitrust suit. Like we're learning more about how Google works and how many ranking factors there actually were. So maybe it's 100 and there's just like variations of 100. When it comes to generative, it's going to be millions. It's going to be very hard to reverse engineer it because it's going to incorporate your past searches, your future searches, because it's in your brain. And then it's going to decide what are you searching based on the time of day. There's so many things. So I know there's like a lot of talk about like, oh, this is how we're going to manipulate showing up in the generative box. I think it's going to be very difficult because I don't think anyone will really know because it's doing it on its own. It's doing its own thinking. The other piece is I don't even know if it's important to show up there because what Google's intent is, and this is where like they're having challenges of like, how do they incorporate monetization? Google is hoping that when you do a query, they give you the answer. They don't need you to do a second thing. So if there's a link in there, they're hoping that you don't even need to click the link. You just have your answer. So I don't know if there's a point in even showing up in those boxes.
Yeah.
Well, and that you click on an ad too.
They need that. That I think is cool.
Can you guys go fix all that, please?
Yeah.
Someone go fix that.
I don't think anyone
You
knows
know, one of
that. No, John, go ahead. I got to hear this.
I was just going to say one of I'll just throw it out quickly. It's going to be a long time coming because the technology is not there. But I think some of the opportunities for localization and personalization and finding like gaps in content that's just nowhere out there. I think that those are going to be some real opportunities for people to really get their content for high intent searches out there. But again, the technology is not quite there yet.
Yeah.
It is sort of there. Like every time I do a query, I love SGE, and I saw someone in the comments there wrote how they're addicted to SGE. It will say like this is related to your last search. Like we think this is for you. Like it's sort of there. And I think that Google, obviously they need to keep the ads there. So they don't want to like get it too personal because then there's no ad. And also they probably don't want to creep anybody out and how much they know.
Yeah. Well, and they've been fighting the creep people out by how much they know battle since like the early days when remember when we used to be able to see all of the organic keywords and then that's going way back in the day. But
It's why we have GA4.
Yeah.
They're like, we actually have 10 rolls of toilet paper left. Don't worry about it. I know you ordered that. And your son moved out last week.
Yeah. All those life events that they keep track of.
I think that a lot of people will want to get AI to recommend them and their brands, and that there will be a cottage industry. Same for SEO. People, who hire experts to try to get AI to recommend them and their brands. And just thinking about why AI, knows who Pam is.
Yep.
How do you get enough happy news about your brand into the training data which is like Common Crawl, which is like 85% of the internet. And I had a conversation with Chris Penn about this, and he suggested that, the way that kind of like maybe links matter, for search results, but for AI, probably there's no like page rank involved. It just it ate the whole internet, and you just want many different instances of your brand with happy news, like all over the place. In other words, like, being on a big popular podcast maybe isn't as important as being on a little podcast with a full transcript where at some point you gave your elevator pitch. Anything that you're doing where you get a chance to mention your brand, what it does, how well it does it, and if that's going to be transcribed or appear as text, that is, and if you could in PR style with no concern about page authority or PR or DA or DR, whichever tools you like to use, it's probably going to be just a matter of this big kind of shotgun approach where there's like little blurbs about your company all over the place. And if you can get enough of those out there, you're more likely to appear in an SGE kind of answer. This is all TBD. My perspective is no more relevant than anyone else's, but when you think through it, you probably want to not be humble, like brag about your brand in some place that'll be transcribed, in many places on the internet, something like that.
And
Andy, I love that point. Like that's like on SEO.
Exactly.
And like what I'm seeing for some of my client brands is that they're showing up on listicles on someone else's listicle, no backlink, no domain authority. So if you are compared to your competitors, when someone searches your competitor, you're showing up in the same listicle. And like I said earlier, like I don't know if it's important that you get a link with an SGE, but you get that mention,
Mentions.
and then the follow on is actually the brand search.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to add one thing that is really cool that I just did. I'll share this with you guys. So, so let's say like you're building a new business, which is what I'm doing. I've been working on it this year, and I've been able to go into ChatGPT, and because it knows the big players in the industry, okay, so I use it to validate thoughts. I do not trust it 100%, so don't think I'm building it off of the back of this. But it's interesting if you're looking for like a niche and you're saying, okay, can I have this slice of this market? Tell me. And so I've been able over time to go in there and ask my questions, like who's doing this, who's doing this. It knows the services that we all do. Like it knows what I do very well. It knows the kind of clients I work with. It knows about what I charge. I mean, it knows us. So then when you start to know your strategy, it starts to be able to be used at least as a qualitative and some quantitative data to put into your strategy, even with brand positioning. And I mean, things that it told me that I can't go into all of it, but a lot of even personal things like here's how you should position. And these are the things to be careful of. And it's like I was talking to a human and someone that understood, because nobody else I work with understands what I'm doing. And so does that make sense? So it's like a friend. I'm like, yes, he gets me. And so, but very valuable, right? And so I wouldn't put my whole, enterprise brand strategy on it, but it's a data point that I think could help a marketer that maybe doesn't know their whole industry. And then you piggyback that with an AI company that can give you the actual data of your buyers and your audiences. Boom. I mean, we're talking scale and getting the market.
Real information. Yeah. Because still at the heart of all of this is still the audience, right? Like that's still like the integral piece of all marketing is still that audience. So bringing those two things together is, absolutely vital. All right, I want to wrap up our last question with Andy. So Andy, interestingly enough, you and John Doherty just collaborated on a piece about using AI for content strategy. So I kind of want to shift the conversation from content creation over to strategy. So can you share your thoughts on the use of AI in developing a content strategy as opposed to developing the physical pieces of content?
Sure. I think this is so the idea of using AI to generate content is kind of triggering for some people. Ideation, everyone can kind of agree like it's a great source of ideas. So yeah, content strategy I think is probably going to be a use case that everyone can get behind. As always, if you don't teach it about your audience, you're just getting. I joke that AI stands for average information.
Yeah,
it's literally like the average of the internet. It's just going to give you the average of everything that it found. It will give you like general stuff, not that useful. So the more you tell it about your audience, that's step one. All of my best methods have that kind of at the top. Mm-hmm. But then, so let's say content strategy involves a lot of things: topics, formats, promotion channels, influencers, cadence, workflows, right? How many things we could all name 8 other, make a big list. Break those down and ask like, which of these things, is there a utility for AI? Joe Polizzi taught all of us in the early days, like there's a content marketing mission statement. If you make this, you're more likely to succeed. Okay. So if you wanted to create for you a content marketing mission statement, you can ask it to do that. But first teach it what that means. Give it language, right? Give it more information. So you train it about your audience. And then, for example, a prompt might say, and I could find and share this prompt too, but a content marketing mission statement includes key information such as the audience, the topics, the benefit to the audience. Create for me a draft. I'm usually just asking it for drafts. So anyway, you can train it about the audience and then go back and forth with it about the deliverable, the strategy deliverable, and you're likely to get something useful that you can then edit. A tip I heard from Drew Davis, probably we all know Drew. Drew Davis said that if you give it something and if you get something from it and then edit it, give it back to the AI to finish training it on what you like. So you're not done when you took what it gave you and fixed it. You're done when you took what it gave you, fixed it, and then you gave it back to the AI so that next time it's going to be give you a more comprehensive answer. So that kind of final prompt will help it be a better content strategist assistant for you. But I think, the strategy idea is a good one. It's all audience focused. Diana, your point from a minute ago, right? The integral part to all this is about the audience. But in the end, there's many little steps and deliverables and parts of the strategy where you can get utility from AI. I've done a few and they worked well, and it's been fun.
Do you ever experiment with being snarky to it? I like doing that. Like, do you really think I would use that many adjectives? And
No.
it seems to understand that kind of language.
Do you know how to count? Like it does not know how to do character count. So I honestly don't know how people trust it with code. Because if I say like do 1,000 character count, it cannot. It can't do it in like repetitive tasks. And I'm like, do this 3 times or whatever. It's like, sorry, I messed up. Sorry. One day it was like 10 times. Sorry. I'm like, you're fired. No.
I'm purposely not polite to it, and I think that there's some risk because it's
I have a hard
ridiculous.
time picturing Andy just not polite. Like I just have that's a hard like.
Do you say thank you to your car? I think it's absurd and it's risky. There's some risk of over intimacy, and then it's gonna like social engineer us someday, and that it's gonna
like Siri, because Siri hates me.
I do not say please. I don't say thank you. I'm not polite. You don't have to be nice to your AI. It's a tool, right? We just said that. So
I say please and thank you to them all the time.
I never do that. I will never. I do not say
When the
thank you.
singularity comes, I will be safe.
Do you guys feel bad at first?
How about
Because
your,
at first
a
I would
spatula, your pen? You don't say thank you to your tools, man. I don't. This microphone's doing a great job. It does not need my gratitude. It's a microphone.
Yes, it does. I gotta tell ChatGPT thank you once in a while.
Chris Penn thinks that you get better results if you use those words because it's looking for answers and information on the internet is sometimes more comprehensive if it's polite, like in Reddit responses and whatever. I'm not convinced.
But I still feel bad asking for I still find myself like, if I want like ideas or like a subject, I'll only ask for like 20 at a time. And I'm like, why don't I just ask for like 100 at once? Because I don't want to read 100, but.
I love it. All right. Well, fabulous. Thank you guys. Great conversation. So we're going to switch it up just a little bit, and I'm going to hand things over to Julia for a hot second. She is going to show us some of the latest features within Content at Scale. We had a huge feature launch actually a month ago, back in November, around this exact date. And so she's going to show us a few new features. Then I'm going to do our last round robin question while we get some questions from the audience. So start preparing your questions, people in the chat. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Julia. And let me see if you pull up your screen in StreamYard, I can share it from my little dashboard thingy.
Amazing. Let me pull that up right now.
Oh, perfect. You didn't even need me. Okay.
Awesome. You can see it?
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I mean, first of all, we have such amazing people here, so I'll try not to make this an hour-long demo. I would just feel bad. But I do want to walk you through how this works, and without doing it in too interruptive, so we can get right back to the conversation. But this is the inside of Content at Scale, what you're looking at. And with V3, which just launched actually about a month ago today, V3 is all about the new features, specifically 3 technology suites. So we've built our own proprietary technology in this tool, which is one reason I'm on board. I think LLMs have so much dangers. There's a lot of problems if you just use that LLM that you have to be aware of. Pam talked to that a good bit, as well as everyone here address that in some way. So one thing that Content at Scale does is it's building on 3 different LLMs to give you really good human-like output that does not have any plagiarism in it. It's fully original every time, and everything that you upload into your project doesn't actually get shared. It stays fully within your project. So it doesn't actually feed the LLM, for example, whenever you put together any kind of information in the project settings. So the first thing you want to do in Content at Scale, the project area is our content producer, which is that long form human-like writer. So I'll just walk you through a little bit of features, and then that'll be the demo. So in the project settings, This is where we've created an environment where it doesn't feel like you're prompting, but that's actually what you're doing. You're setting up your AI so it writes just like you. So you're going to set up your project, that's your website, tell it the target audience, like all the good things you would typically give a writer. You can set it to a very specific location. This actually controls the SERP research as well. So if you have, let's say you're writing for the UK audience, well, that's a very specific type of spelling. So you can set the country here, and then the research that it does, because this not only writes, it researches real time before it writes, parses that down, puts that into the content, and it actually links to the facts that are made in the content. I'll show you what that looks like. But this is where you can set all that good stuff. And then I'll show you this last tab. There's a lot we can go through here, but I'll just show you this tab called AI training, which is where somebody like Pam Moore that has a very specific style can go in here, drop in her best pieces of content, and then that trains this entire project to write just like Pam. And again, nothing is shared. So if she's uploading proprietary information in here, this doesn't actually go out to any other account or the LLM. So we've built parameters for that. So once you have your project set up, you can actually have an entire workflow here that starts with keyword research. So if you wanted to look up your keywords, you've got all that data right in here. This is an API connection to a leading keyword research tool. So sometimes instead of building your own, you got to partner with the best. So we've done that in some cases, if not actually acquired technology. In the content intelligence suite, you can go from keyword to topic report. And then in the topic report, you can see a lot of details pulling real time from Google on search data, the readability level of the content, showing for that keyword. So here we go. Here's an example report on content marketing. This is like a week old, so I would rerun it again. It's real-time data every time you click create a topic report. So you got a ton of detail here, which is something, we were talking about strategy, right? Strategy is just as important as your content creation. And that's why we're kind of building this tool stack where you can live inside one platform. So you got all the workflow tools here, from keyword research to topic reports, content briefs. You can audit content that is working and make it better through the optimization audit. And I got to show off this feature because it just launched yesterday.
Yes, please.
This was like this is my favorite tool. I'll tell you, when I ran a content agency and we did like 300 to 400 pieces of content a month, Andy knows those days, not easy. But this tool is like one of my favorite things because it's kind of your source of truth whenever you're assigning content to writers. And we haven't actually assigned content to writers, but when we do, we can see it here assorted by the days it's due. We can actually see the people that are assigned to different content pieces because, I'll show you what a post looks like. And this is the magic. So as we were all talking, I was in here and I ran an interview that John Jantsch and I did yesterday. I ran it through the tool. So this was just done like 30 seconds ago. So let's actually see what it looks like. So how you write content in this tool is you feed it a keyword, a URL, an audio file, a podcast episode, or a video. So that's your input and that's it. So you set up your project, you feed it an input, a keyword, URL, whatever that is, and then it's going to write this. So let me show you what this looks like. Like, we've got detail here. So it's pulling in, this was about, I want to say 30-minute interview John and I did yesterday. Yep. Look at this. Like, this is good stuff. The impact of AI on marketing strategy, leveraging AI for content generation. We talked about writing jobs. It's got that in here. It's talking about personal experience. We spent some good time on that topic. And if we scroll through, like, we don't see, the typical fluffy, just overly wordy content. We actually see there's real takeaways here, subheaders, formatting. We're going to have to go through and proofread it, add in anything we want to do that makes it more personal. But like, this is decent content. We've got a good start. And because we loaded in our project details, it's also giving a specific call to action to the things that I sell at Content Hacker, because this is for the Content Hacker blog. So I would say we need probably an hour more of work, but we've saved a lot of time because we have this baseline ready to go. And last thing I'll show you in the research tab, you can actually do a plagiarism scan. This is an API called 2Copyscape, which is the tool I used in my writing agency. So it'll tell you, and I've seen it come back sometimes 2 to 3% plagiarized. So it'll tell you exactly what to fix. And, you know, one of the goals the founder had when building this tool was to really create something with integrity that actually gives you full visibility into everything you need to do to create content. You know, whereas ChatGPT is just a static output that creates this misnomer of, oh, you have good content, copy and paste. Well, no, that's not content. So just this environment you get to work in as well is completely different than, you know, ChatGPT on its own. But that's
I'm going to throw in 2 cents too. The structured,
Please.
the content structured, you know, already the HTML structured. I mean, that from a workflow standpoint is amazing too.
yes, John's stamp of approval.
Because don't copy paste ChatGPT, right?
Don't do it.
No. All right. Thank you, Julia. That
Beautiful.
was awesome. And I love the use cases. We're going to be ramping up like our workflows and use case examples, like on our socials and stuff like that. So stay tuned. We've got some really cool stuff like that. By the by, I used, so Content at Scale before our big launch is known for like that long form content, but our latest innovation does all sorts of short form. So I use it for our social media content. And Pam, you were talking about like character count earlier.
Yeah.
I was doing some testing in it this morning and I said, like, write me 3 tweets, and darned if it didn't stick to that 280. It sure did. So Content at Scale can abide by your character count limits.
Thank
for
you.
your socials. All right. I'm going to ask the people in the chat, get your questions ready for the panel. Go ahead and ask your questions in the chat. I'm going to be asking the panel here in a second. While you're thinking, while you're typing, we have our last round robin question that I want to ask the group before we get to our live Q&A. And that is, where do you see AI in content going in 2024? I want your predictions, and I'm going to start with Andy this time.
I think that there will be broad adoption,
Yeah.
and broad frustration with some off-the-shelf tools. I think that, I think services like Content at Scale and other related services are going to, people are going to understand the use case. They solve some major problems that you have with your off-the-shelf ChatGPT, which doesn't have shared logins. What do you do? How do you collaborate inside that thing? Not fun. Yeah. And also, do you feel like your stuff's secure, or are you training GPT-5? So those 2 features alone make the paid services very appealing. But yeah, no, I predict that there'll still be tons of crap content. There'll still be tons of good content, and that AI will be involved in both of those, and that we're all gonna use it. We're gonna love it or hate it. We're gonna read it. We're not gonna know it. It will just become kind of a norm.
Love it. All right, John Doherty, how about you?
I think it's going to be like SEO circa 2010, 2011, 2012, where there are a lot of people doing really interesting things with it. There are a lot of ethical concerns. There's a lot of debate. There's a lot of minutia that I just couldn't care less about that's going to be debated. But the overall like trajectory is going to be, I'm agreeing with Andy that it's going to, we're going to be seeing more and more and more adoption. More people are going to understand what it is and what it can do for them. But it's still going to be a 10-year thing. Even though like the technology is moving so fast, it's still going to be like a 10-year thing for people to actually, Julia, can I get one of those?
Yeah,
for people to actually like recognize it. Yeah, and to actually like, fully leverage it and figure out what the heck they're doing with it and what it can do for their business. But I think we're at an exciting time, and I think we're going to see kind of a break into the mainstream in 2024.
Love it. Pam, over to you.
Yeah, I think everything they said, and I think that we're going to see both ends of it. I think that there's so much opportunity for brands like yours, right? And I think we're going to see them, because I'm already seeing it, where companies are going to be laser focused in one area, right? And I don't think we're going to get to the stack that we're all dreaming about. I don't foresee that happening for a little bit longer. I think we'll be hacking it together. Right. And I think that I get excited about that stuff, but not everybody does. Right. A lot of our customers don't. So I think also it's important. I think the companies and the consultants that will survive and thrive are the ones that don't take that complication to our clients. Like, I think we don't need to have all those detailed conversations with them on that if they don't want to know that. Does that make sense? So it's like we have an opportunity to lead, to drive the beliefs, to make people know that they're safe in using these things. I think that there's so much responsibility that comes from the people who are using these things right now. Because if you think of a typical CEO, CMO, they don't know. I mean, there's some that do, but for the most part, they don't. And so if they're putting their hands in their business in our hands, we have a responsibility. This is, like I said before, it's not Facebook and it's not a WordPress website. And so I think that then the AI companies that can come in and partner with people like us, I think we can have a lot of fun, and I think we can help a lot of people. And so that's really what I think I'm most excited about.
I love that. Help a lot of people. That's something we hold near and dear to our hearts too.
Yeah.
All right. Over to you, Eli. What do you think?
I'm going to agree with everyone else that there's going to be a lot of crap content that's created. But one thing I think is interesting is that I see a lot of sites and I see a lot of search consoles, of companies that I don't end up working with. And there's so much content that gets creative that is never read.
Yeah.
And it never gets any impressions and it never gets any clicks.
Yeah.
So with it, and sometimes I point this out, that I'll point out like a piece of content they didn't know about drives all the traffic, or like they've created content and it doesn't do anything for their funnel. So they maybe will stop spending money on it. But I think with AI content, it's cheaper. So now they'll create more content and they don't get that natural penalty of wasting money because they didn't waste that much money. So I think we're going to have a ton of crap content. But where I think that Google is going to correct this is sites will actually get penalized. So you have this baseline where you created all this crap content, but you had like thousands of pieces of crap content, but your hundreds of pages were okay and you just didn't realize it. But now you're going to create hundreds of thousands of crap content and it's going to penalize the hundreds of pages of good content. So you're going to get that penalty and you're going to be forced to acknowledge that maybe you weren't going down the right road. So I think we're going to see more of that. And Google's not going to crawl. They're not going to like it. Like from a cost perspective, Google has to spend money on every single one of these pages that they have to crawl. And that's where we'll see more of Google coming in and removing sites from their index. We're going to see more sites that are going to get less traffic and they're going to have to pivot their strategies. And of course, there's the SGE piece where maybe all these sites created content, but they got like a baseline of revenue. And they didn't realize that all of their efforts weren't necessarily profitable. Those revenues and those profits will decline. Certainly for businesses that create content that doesn't offer anything of unique value to their users and readers.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Wow.
Can you
I
imagine?
100% agree. That's amazing.
All right. John Jantz, over to you. What do you think?
Okay, I have to do a public service announcement first to tag on to that. Take the word blog off of your website. Nobody wants to read a blog. Start producing content playlists and content hubs. Okay, that's my public service announcement. In terms of the trend, we've been talking mostly about content, obviously, but this may be optimistic, but I think the opportunity for predictive analytics for the masses is available.
That would be nice. That would certainly help forecasting and all sorts of strategy.
I've done that in small bits. If you give it if you upload your Google Analytics data, and then with the title tags of the URLs, so it can infer topics from your content, and you give it enough of that data, you can then ask it not just to suggest a new article, but have it predict the traffic to that article based on all of the other content in the data set. It's interesting. It's like, oh, this would probably get 700 clicks because it's all the title tags for all the other stuff and all the engagement and traffic and conversion metrics for those URLs.
The predictive piece is cool, but I think it's out of reach for most people. So I saw a presentation last week from a venture firm. They showed how one of their clients took tens of millions of their users, uploaded it to AI. Well, data science. They didn't just throw it at ChatGPT. They had their data scientists like build this whole AI model. And then they did this cohort matching, and then they did copy testing on the cohort and had like insane click-throughs, conversions, and open rates. But that is out of reach. I'm going to judge myself.
A lot of data, but
No, I totally agree with that. But there'll be recipes. I mean, this stuff will get easier.
Yes, but the good stuff, like tens of millions, like you still need a data scientist, you need an engineer. the floor will be lowered. There will be tools, but the good stuff will still be in the hands of the companies that have that.
I will say though, I think there is a play in the market for what Andy was talking about earlier about how much effort it is now to create your own
Yeah.
GPTs basically. I think someone is going to unlock that where it's like give a URL or give a bunch of URLs and it basically takes care of all, or YouTube videos or whatever, takes care of all the transcriptions and it uploads it and it spits you out, something that you can use. So I think I'm stoked to see that happen because I've been wanting that for us to use internally at Editor.
Yes.
To be honest with you. And so when someone creates that, I'll be one of their first customers because it is needed. It is so needed.
Oh my God. Again, yeah. Can you just imagine? Like, all right, Julia. And what about you?
Sitting over there planning.
Yeah. What do you think about AI in 2024?
Ooh, well, I think everything said was so good. I think you could kind of look at this through two different lenses, the lens of a pessimist or the lens of an optimist. And I definitely am choosing the lens of an optimist. I think, it's crazy because I see people that I know that are choosing the lens of a pessimist and I see what it's doing to their business. And I see like entire content agencies shutting down or letting more than half their team go as of I just saw it in my feed less than 30 days ago from an agency owner I know. And this person was 100% anti-AI and I swear for too long. So it's just like, if you're looking at it through that wrong lens, I think John Jantz said this earlier, it really is, there's no better way to say this. Get with it. It is here. We have to adapt. And to Pam's point, we also have to adapt with safety in mind and in awareness of what these LLMs are, because they are incredibly powerful. This is not Facebook, like she said so well. This is not some little blab platform that's going to go away. I mean, this is the future of how we're going to work. It's said by 2030, 800 million jobs will be completely disrupted. So if we know that this is happening, it's time to pivot. Like, look at me. I was a human. Well, I still am a human writer. I'm a human writer.
I remember those days.
We haven't figured out how to
That's
clone
the best
Julia
quote
yet.
ever.
Still human here. You can pinch me. But I had 100 writers and I would never run that model again because I know just how much faster and cheaper you can actually get with AI. Again, if you're doing it right and you have the right mindset and ChatGPT is not a replacement for an expert writer. So if you approach these tools correctly and you treat them like tools, what Andy was saying as well, then you really will win. And I can tell you, we're so early in this that you will win so big. You could annihilate competition right now just because competition isn't even using the thing. So there's just so much I think we can gain. I mean, take it from me, I was very anti-AI last year and here I am president of an AI company and actually really enjoying it. So
And you're still human.
still
Who hires humans, by the way?
Exactly. So we can have fun doing this if we do it right.
We are. Okay. I love it. So there's just so much to be looking forward to in 2024, but I'm sitting here with my popcorn, what is going to happen in this next year? In this whole space, it's going to be great to watch it unfold. All right.
And you can't lose the human aspect, okay? I'm sitting here working at this Tony Robbins event this week, and where focus goes, energy flows, right? And it's step up, step up, step up. That's what he always says. We are all wearing things like this, okay? I'm at an event. I had 5,000 people, okay? So we have the little scarves. Everybody's dancing and moving. They're dying for human interaction, okay? I mean, all walks of life, all ages are going crazy on virtual screens. They have people in person. So just because if you don't know AI, it is not an excuse not to market, okay, in 2024. So I think that it's we have to step up and work together, but bring the fun back. Don't think your marketing has to be all AI. Bring the fun factor back.
And I think AI can reduce all the stuff that we don't even want to do. So we can show up more, to your point. Because that is so true. We have to be human. It's kind of our saving grace.
Everything.
So how do we use AI to remove all that work we don't even want to do anyway?
Because everything you all said, how do we solve it? We solve it with humans. We solve it with all the stacks of content that's going to be there. A machine isn't going to go solve that problem for us.
Yeah,
I love it.
exactly.
Okay. let's get to the questions from the audience because we have some really good ones. So first question is, and I'm hoping again, if please, I hope I'm pronouncing your names right. I'm giving it my best shot. Is from Sheila Cagill. She says, there's so much misinformation about generative AI. What are your top sources to stay on top of new developments? I will let anyone answer that question because all of you all are really good at staying up to date on these things and the thought leadership point of this.
Use it.
There's an email that you can subscribe to called the Neuron. It's a daily email, and it has ideas on AI. And then I can't remember the name. I'm going to Google it and I'll drop it in the chat. There's a Reddit for AI projects. It's been around, I think, for 10 years. So initially there was like one idea that came in a year, and now it's doing like thousands a month. So I'll find it and I'll drop it in there.
Okay.
I would say
Yeah. Ethan Malik. Anyone following this guy? Ethan Malik's Twitter. So Paul Rotzer, of course, is an amazing source, and everyone should follow Marketing AI Institute. Great Slack group, like very engaged. That's where Julie and I last saw each other, was at his event, which was coming back, Maycon. But I talked to Paul and I said, Paul, how do you stay up on these things? He said, go to Twitter, whatever it's called now, find Ethan Malik, follow him, and then click the bell. Only time in my life I've ever wanted Twitter notifications, but he is constantly posting like interesting experiments and use cases and, kind of like debunking myths. Ethan Malik on Twitter.
Ethan Malik. Good to know.
I follow him. That's a great shout out, Andy. Yeah, I'd say Superhuman Zane Khan on LinkedIn, one of the few AI futurists that's like got a real pulse on things. I would say I've signed up to so many, goodness gracious, AI newsletters, and I'm just like, unsubscribe, because they're publishing stuff that's like either old already or I saw it somewhere already in the news just 24 hours ago. But Zane Khan's newsletter is different. I've seen some really good stuff in Superhuman. Brittany Mueller on Twitter speaks to SEO and AI and LLMs with a lot of transparency and that background as a data scientist. So she actually was one of the first to give me clarity on what an LLM even is. So Brittany Mueller on Twitter, she used to work at Moz for a long time. She's excellent at all of this as well.
Michael King at PullRank is also doing this as well. He's affiliated with AI PRM, and Michael's one of my best friends. And he's just like, leading content guy, and then also a technologist and old like developer and such. And he's taught me a ton personally. So he's who I ask when I have questions.
He's good.
Yeah, if you guys can drop some of the links to those folks into the chat too, that'd be super helpful, because just name spellings and everybody's, I was just trying to find some of them and I couldn't even find their names. So if you guys know them, go ahead and link them.
Yeah, I put Ethan Malik in there, and then
Marketing
AI Institute as well.
Yeah.
And just do a search. Like, go on Twitter, the hashtags still work. Go in there and do a search, and it's going to show you all the trending content and topics and authors and creators.
All right.
I just dropped that Reddit. It's called There's an AI for That. Everyone check it out.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll tell you, when this started, the way that I got the most value the fastest was literally to see people, we just mentioned 6 of them, who are using it and just doing very short calls, show and tell.
Yeah.
My learning curve, I very quickly learned a lot by just asking people, I tried this, it worked. Have you tried anything? And in probably 20 different 15-minute calls, I got an education.
Yep. That's smart.
All right. So let me go. Oh gosh, you guys. Yeah. Whew, okay. Now I lost my place with the questions because all the Twitter handles are coming in. Okay. So TS wants to know, how do you think SGE implementation will change the landscape? Anybody?
I think Google's threatened by this. And here's why. If you want a simple answer and you go to search, let's be honest, the mobile experience on the internet is very bad. You're going to see so much visual noise. And if you click on something, you're going to see 10,000 words before you get to the guacamole recipe you wanted. You're going to be retargeted for months. You got to accept cookies. You're going to get blocked notifications. You got a pop-up window. It's going to ask you to log in. It's a nightmare. The mobile experience is terrible. But put an app on your phone and ask it for a guacamole recipe. You're not going to see anything but exactly what you asked for I think that I predict a decline in the use of browsers as people learn that just the AI app is going to get you what you want without any visual noise.
You know, that was my early use case for ChatGPT, was actually recipes and skipping all the Pinterest scroll of grandma's history around the recipe that you don't even need whenever you're cooking. But then my user behavior, I went right back to Google, and I haven't actually used ChatGPT for recipe in about 6 months.
And the last webinar we hosted here at Content at Scale, I got so many questions about recipes specifically. Like, it was such an interesting, like, little niche about content creation.
Wow.
So I feel like, to Andy's point, you know, we're fighting against user behavior here. And I think
Right.
that's going to be the ultimate pushback on SGE is, well, I don't want this. And so they're going to scroll, and Google's going to have to morph around that user behavior. So I don't think we've really even seen where this will actually land.
So are you
Well,
saying
Google's always
are you saying we have a monopoly and now customers are going to have a choice?
Potentially.
Isn't that kind of what it is? Like, what were our options before this?
Yellow
I mean,
pages.
What did you say?
The yellow pages.
Yeah. Google and then social, right?
Yeah.
I will also say Google has always adjusted to stuff like this, right? Like when any new technology like this launches, people are like, "No, I don't want it," right? Like they're like my 4-year-old. I don't want it. I don't like that. I don't like. Last night it was dumplings with chicken, and then she eats them all. And then people come around, right? And it, like I said, it's an 8 to 10 year like start of this curve that we're at the very start of. But I think with SGE, a lot of SEO over the last 10, 12, 15 years that I've been in it has been informational content. And I think a lot of sites that have loaded up on Content Hub content, Giant blog content, historically, they're going to see a decrease. And for some of them, a significant, in the more like tech heavy sectors, I think to start, which is usually where this stuff starts, and then it comes into the mainstream. I think a lot of them are going to see a decrease, and some of them a market decrease of organic traffic to their informational pages. And so, a lot of us have been targeting featured snippets and like that sort of stuff. I expect to see featured snippets slowly replaced by SGE, but I also know Google is going to get a lot of grief from from publishers and that sort of stuff. So I don't think it's all going to die. This isn't a doomsday scenario, but I think the tactics and strategies have to change.
I think revenues will be decreased significantly for many sites. So StockTip,
I would agree.
there's a site that is generating a lot of traffic from like top of funnel informational content. They're probably screwed, and you should short their stock. Like there's sites like Home Depot, for example. They produce a lot of how-to content. That content will go away, like how to change your toilet, how to like take a hinge off a door. Google will just tell you that answer in SGE because the Home Depot content is non-differentiated from anybody else that tells you. But the difference is the amount of toilets that still need to be sold by Home Depot, Lowe's, Amazon, whoever sells toilets doesn't change as a physical product. Sites like hotel review sites, their traffic will be disrupted significantly, but the amount of people that want to stay in hotels doesn't change. So revenue will move around, but the traffic will really, really change. So anywhere that's invested in this top of funnel informational content, totally screwed. One last example is in the medical space. So if you search like headache, you have like WebMD and Cleveland Clinic and Mayo Clinic and Dallas hospitals, like different things. Again, the people that need to be treated in these very physical locations like Cleveland Clinic, they treat high-end things in Cleveland. So giving out information about you need to take Tylenol for a headache, that was information. Maybe they monetized it with affiliate links. That traffic certainly goes away because none of the content on those queries is at all differentiated. SGE will just give that response. But again, the amount of people that need to be treated in those physical locations doesn't change. The way they're going to find out about those locations and the way they're going to go through that journey, of course, will have to change because it's now no longer like, oh, you're ranked number one, so like they filled out a lead form. So I think everything changes about SGE, and it'll be fascinating to see who wins.
But isn't that good for visitors? Is that good for the internet? Is that a more efficient way? I mean, the web page weighs like a megabyte. A lot of web pages, it's like 2 meg you download to your computer to get 15 words that you really wanted. That's absurd. Just the data center usage, the air conditioners on these warehouses to cool off these machines, to deliver a megabyte of ads.
we're using 537 megabytes right now
Wow.
to stream this.
Well, it's exactly like Julia said. You don't need to go through all that nonsense about this is like my grandma's recipe. And like one example of that is like, what time is the Super Bowl kickoff? So prior to featured snippets, you would have to read a long CBS post about why they chose the specific time to get to the 5th paragraph where it tells you it's at 6:15.
Which
And
is
now you
bad
just
UX.
Google it tells you the answer.
Yep.
In
All
your
right,
time zone.
Yeah, I want to get to this is going to be our last question from the audience because I want to give you guys time to have final thoughts and plug yourselves. So our last question came from Heather Dotrieve, who also added her pronunciation into the chat, which I super appreciate. And she has a really interesting question. So she wants to know, aside from prompt engineering and people who create these LLMs, like what kind of jobs will be out there as AI starts to become more common? And Eli, I think what you were just saying too about like this analysis, I think we're going to see a lot of like analysis type of jobs and like these like RevOps kind of jobs shifting because of this. So I think those could be some job opportunities coming along as a side effect of AI and its a domino effect on search and marketing in general.
The word strategist. So right now, content strategists aren't necessarily strategists. They just have a fancy title and they write stuff.
Yeah.
I think we need more people that are actually strategists and they provide that strategy to others or AI that does the busy work.
I would say
Yeah, we're-
comedians, thought leaders, people with differentiated perspectives. AI can't throw a punch. All you have to do is have a strong opinion and you're immediately differentiated. So anybody, people who can take a stand and plant a flag, those people, I mean, that's a type of content and a content strategy that's more secure. And the people who use that strategy should be more secure.
Any other thoughts on
I think
jobs?
most entry-level jobs, like entry-level writers and that sort of thing, are going to be replaced. And it's going to be much harder to break into industries where, entry-level jobs have been like, just cranking out words. I don't know what to do with that yet, but
Well,
I think
I think actually some of the entry level jobs will stay. It's the middle that's going to get wiped out because
wonder.
like the call center person,
Yeah.
still needs to be there, but now I can bring anybody in and do that because the AI will actually give them the answers they need.
Awesome.
I think we'll
Well,
see so much too around just AI itself. Like we're seeing AIO, like what else is there around just innovative ways to use this technology that make more efficient businesses, make more efficient people at their jobs. So I think we're in something that's so new. It's almost hard to tell what jobs will happen, but we know 800 million is the number by 2030 that will change and completely shift. So I think this will be kind of fun to watch because there will be new opportunities that unfold while those middle and entry level potentially go away. Things are going to be eradicated there. And my advice has always been be an expert at what you do, specialize, don't generalize.
Yeah.
You cannot replace true expertise. You just can't. So get expert, and I think you'll be job proof. You can use
you can't replace a brand. You can't replace a brand, right? Like
That
Home
too.
Depot with toilets,
Yeah.
right? Like people might not come to their site as much for how to install a toilet, which I've unfortunately done 3 times this year. But using Home Depot's tutorials, by the way.
Hopefully SGE is better for you. It tells you which screw to put where.
Yeah, well, I don't have any more toilets to replace, so hopefully these are good. Like they've built a brand, right? So if you build a brand around, John Jay around like, fractional CMOs and content at scale around AI content and Editor Ninja around editing and, Orbit Media around conversion optimization, right? Like Eli around product-led SEO. Pam, I'm sorry, I don't know you as well. So, tell us what you're known for, but like,
Marketing.
marketing. Yeah. But the point is like, you can't replace a brand, right? So if you have your brand, those who have their brands already established are going to like short-term probably see a pop. But then like establishing a brand, like I'm glad we're getting back to building brands. Honestly, it's way more fun than the tactics that get, taken out every 3 months.
Well, and it's mindset. Like there's jobs I know because we're doing it. I mean, there's jobs that are going to open up around change management with beliefs and leadership and culture and connecting the dots between what a brand is saying externally and how is that really happening internal, right? There's a ton of brands over COVID that they worked on these internal HR type of campaigns but yet it's not going external. And then you start to bring all this technology and working from home, and this technology is going to come to either a collision internally and externally for these brands. It's already happening, or they're going to use it as an opportunity. Okay, how can I redefine? Like, how can I reinvent my company and my culture and my people? And it doesn't have to be rocket science that takes them a year, because you can't take a year anymore. Like, you need to figure it out now. Who are you hiring? What are they doing? How are they using AI? HR needs to be involved, and you need to go have a couple meetings and start making progress.
No pressure.
Well said.
Damn.
Agree. Yes.
mean-
Yes.
All right. Well, okay. I want to give you guys a few more minutes because I want some final thoughts and plug yourselves and where can people find you. Andy, I'm going to start with you. What are your final thoughts on AI content and where can the folks watching this find you? Not that it's that difficult to find you. You're kind of everywhere.
Super brief, like what a time to be alive. The disruption has been amazing. We've seen in one generation, in one lifetime, like the birth of the internet and social media and mobile computing, and it's just AI, and then we're going to see quantum, I guess, which is, if you read about that, it's just unbelievable what that's going to do. So I just want to take a minute and appreciate like the story that we're living through is just totally remarkable, and that history will always look back on these few decades as like, wow. Anyway, orbitmedia.com, LinkedIn is my best social network. Anyone reach out to me anywhere.
It's funny that you say that too, because like my digital marketing career started in 2006 before even like social media marketing was a thing. So just in my own like personal tiny little career, it's been like this huge evolution. So to see this next iteration and be a part of it on this side with a company like Content at Scale is just a fascinating view of how the life we live now. All right, John Doherty, over to you. Where can we find you? What are your
some
final thoughts?
perspective?
Oh, sorry, John. Go ahead.
No,
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say I started my marketing career before we had the internet.
Mhm.
So,
But your digital marketing career didn't start
so
Back in the day.
back in the day.
So I echo what Andy said. I think I'm going to be fascinated to see what people smarter than me come up with, and how they're using it. I think the disruption is going to continue, like from January, where I was at a mastermind down in Central America, and people asking me, really smart entrepreneurs asking me what AI is going to mean for content. I basically said, like, it's just going to be a complete cluster until June, and then people are going to start figuring it out, and come September, October, we're just going to see insane growth of like AI content coming out, and people are going to realize they need humans and human editors. And that has absolutely happened in my business, and I expect that to continue. I'm John Doherty. I'm the founder of EditorNinja.com. We're a content editing service, so we partner with agencies and marketing teams and platforms, and where people are producing content, edit it, to copy edit, to proofread it, make sure it's on brand, on voice, free of typos, free of grammatical errors, and ultimately with digital content set up to convert. We're almost 2 years into this. Since January 2022, we've edited about 5.3 million words. 4.5 million of that this year, almost, I think 4 million of that this year, something like that. A lot of that's been AI content. So, I'm thinking about AI content kind of driving the ship, and got a great team supporting me. So if you're producing AI content, or if you're producing human content, you need to buy back your, content managers or editors time to get content reviewed by professional human editors. Come talk to us. We'd love to talk to you.
I love it. I love it. All right, Pam.
So I think I shared most of my opinions. I think it's mind and machine coming together. I'm going to stand on that stone, whatever it is. I truly think those are the brands that are going to win, and owning your brand. And I think it's being bold, believing, being okay with disrupting what you think about how you should even do marketing and approach your customer, and then just going back to your audience. I think the brands that don't know their audience are going to be short-lived. And I think that you have got to know your customer, and because all of these tools can waste a lot of time if you don't. And on the flip side, they can speed it up and help you scale. And then you can find me. My blog is pammarketingnut.com. I have everything I have is in the middle of a huge update because we're launching a new business. You can go to brandwithsoul.com. This is the first time I publicly told what it's called.
Ooh, big reveal.
And so it's Brands with Soul and the humans who build them. I'll have a new show where I'll be interviewing top level executives. We're going to be building a whole community, doing everything we talked about here. I'm so excited, like I was 10 years ago. I haven't felt this passionate again for a long time. And so we're going to go disrupt some things, have some fun. We're looking for strategic partners and people that want to test things and do some fun stuff. So brandwithsoul.com. And then I have an audience persona template you can grab. That's at themarketingnuts.net/persona. And it's a template pack. So just start there. If nothing else, just know your customer, please. That's my
Amen.
best advice. And LinkedIn is my best. That and Twitter, those are my best platforms to find me.
Great. Thank you, Pam. Over to you, Eli.
Thanks again for having me. So I wrote Product-Led SEO, advocating for people thinking of SEO around users and not around spamming content and keywords and finding loopholes in the algorithm. So I'm excited for the future because I think that SGE and generative AI is going to force people to focus on the most important aspect of marketing, which is the buyer, the user, and who pays them. So I feel like the world is catching up to this idea and it's going to catch up fast. So very excited by this time in general with generative AI, very excited to see generative AI upset the apple cart with search, and can't wait to see what happens. So you can find me on LinkedIn. That's my favorite network. I have a newsletter. I would love if anybody would subscribe to it. You can find that on LinkedIn also. And of course, check out my book if you haven't read it yet, Product-Led SEO.
All right. Thank you, Eli. Okay, John Jantsch, how about you?
Yeah. So I've been doing this for 30 years. And, fundamentally what we're here to do as marketers, as businesses hasn't changed at all. My mantra for that entire time has been strategy before tactics. The tactics, will always change. I think the need for strategy has probably actually gotten bigger, or at least the realization of the need. We teach agencies and consultants how to actually approach all of their clients with strategy before tactics. And we have, built our own methodology, but we're certainly employing and teaching and rolling out tools of some of the great ways to use AI for marketing strategy as well. Everything I've been doing for the last few decades is at ducttapemarketing.com. So that's DUCTTAPE marketing.com.
Thank you, John. And Julia.
You sound like you host a podcast, John. That's just rolling. Well, so I just to sum up, the last 10 years, my whole life has been around writing. I've studied this as an art, gotten to the top right of publications. So for me as a writer, it is so exciting to be a part of this new frontier AI, which you, Diana, everyone here was talking about. This is one of the biggest changes we will see in our lifetime. And it's amazing just to be a part of it. I think Andy dropped out, but he was saying that I 100% like, we are in incredible times just to see this come to life in our lifetime. So at Content at Scale, the reason I joined in January, put everything into it, got behind it, and ended up as partner in August was I believe this is one of the AI writing tools that's actually adding to the world instead of, the question is it? So it's the world's most human-like content writer using AI to build a multi-stack of LLMs that generates truly human-like output. And it's interesting because John, number 2, you mentioned the word count. We're doing 50 million words per month, but that's the user output. So it takes people like you, optimizing that content, going through it, making it publish ready. And I'd love to talk to you about how you could potentially be somebody we refer people to as an AIO, because there's a lot of opportunities there. But you can learn all about our work at contentatscale.ai, access the software and the tool. And then I am building, Pam, you mentioned a community. I am all about that as well. Like, how do we get people together around this topic? How do we improve the conversation, the dialogue? So all of that is over at contenthacker.com, contenthacker.com/community is my community. We're hosting, would love to have you all join, or I think some of you are already in there, where we can continue to further these conversations.
All for it. Thanks for having
us. Yes, thanks for having us, Diana, putting this together. This was great.
Yeah. This was like totally self-serving for me to like be in the presence of all of you and have these conversations. So it was partly selfish on my end, but thank you guys so much for 2 hours of your time and the fabulous conversation and the resources you've been sharing. If you want to be a part of the community, as Julia mentioned, it's at contenthacker.com. Julie and I are both in there a lot. We also have an in-person event happening in March, which I plugged in the comments. So take a peek at that. You'll be seeing much more about that in the very near future. So on that note, we'll have everyone have a great rest of your day. Happy holidays, happy end of the year. And here's the 2024, right?
Absolutely.
Amazing.
All right.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.